Welcome to the live panel session by the College of the Arts, where we will be talking about the future of the creative industries. My name is Becky Morgan-Phillips, and I am a third-year communications and public relations student here at the University of Lincoln. I am joined today by several lecturers and academics throughout the College of the Arts who will be discussing this subject with me and with each other. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves because they will do a far better job than I will. So let's start with Emilio.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Becky. My name is Emilio. I'm a senior lecturer in product design, and I'm a part of the teaching staff of the BA Honors Product Design program and the MA Design program at the Lincoln School of Design.
And Alex.
Thanks, Becky. I'm Alex Lefchuk. I'm a program leader for communications and public relations, also the founder of Siren Radio, and I've just completed my 4,290th podcast.
And Jack.
Oh, sorry, trying to unmute. Hey, I'm Jack Shelbourne. I'm the program leader for film and television studies in the School of Film and Media. I'm also a cinematographer.
And Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Bainton. I'm from Lincoln School of Fine and Performing Arts. So that's theatre, music, fine art, technical theatre and stage management, and our new musical theatre course. And I've got an odd role. I'm a lecturer, and I'm also an embedded producer for the school. So I help to produce the work of all our students. And
last but not least, Jason.
Thank you. So I'm Jason Whitaker, head of the School of English and Journalism. I work across all the programs that we offer in the school, which are English journalism, obviously, but also creative writing, public relations and communications. I've written several books myself and also worked as a journalist for 15 years.
Okay, so let's get right into it then and ask the big question. Feel free to jump in with any ideas or any comments that you might have. So that question is, of course, what is the future of the creative industries? Where do you see it going and what do you see happening? Take it away.
Well, we're in an odd time, aren't we? We're in a time of great flux. Lots of things are changing and there's lots of uncertainty, but that's also a time of great creativity. So you're seeing lots of innovation across all of the arts, and you're seeing people really take stock of what's going on with them now in their individual sectors and how they can benefit communities and people as we move forwards. And I think we saw in lockdown just how important the creative industries are to everybody. Everyone was really reliant on all of the films and music and performances and everything that was coming to them digitally through their screens. So I think the future at the moment, certainly this kind of move to digital and how we might reach audiences, even if we can't all be together.
I think as well, some of the things that we're starting to witness, obviously the impact of lockdown was to halt an awful lot of developments that have been taking place. You know, people had plans for 2020 that couldn't take place. But what's then started to emerge in the intervening months is you're also starting to see the acceleration of certain trends. In an area that's very close to my heart, for example, in terms of the news industries based in London, there had already begun to be a kind of a mass, well, the beginnings of an exodus from the city centre. For an awful lot of journalists working on sort of average media salaries in the city, London's becoming too expensive to live and work. And I think actually the fact that we were all had to embrace these digital technologies to communicate with each other has actually meant that you're starting to see this kind of centrifugal movement away of some of the creatives who were based in the centre of London. Because to be honest, a real advantage of being in London was that you're 2 streets, you're 5 minutes or 20 minutes away from the various people that you want to work with, to interview, to develop projects. If you're having to speak to all of those people via Zoom, it doesn't matter whether you're physically 20 minutes away or 3 hours or 10 hours, or indeed the other side of the world. And I'll actually just end with one brief anecdote of a friend of mine who's a composer and performer, brilliant pianist called Harriet Stubbs. If you've watched any of the Harry Potter films, you'll have heard her work, let's put it like that. And she's been trying to get various deals with American executives for the past 2 years. Suddenly, after March, they were available. She lives in New York. She couldn't get into their offices. Now they had a lot of time in their hands and were actually looking for those opportunities. So we'll see certain things contract, but other areas, it's an acceleration of trends that were already taking place.
If I can jump in there, yeah, the acceleration for a couple of areas in our school in film and media, film production and a lot of live TV and a lot of kind of narrative television all stopped. But animation and audio production work started to boom because you were replacing the need to have people around with creating your infographics, your information, especially right now when you couldn't suddenly stop giving people information and selling products. So animation exploded, and the sound design, of course, for animation is needed. So everyone I knew in the animation industry, everyone I knew in the kind of audio side of things, a lot of them were working more than they'd ever worked before. So there's an example of part of creative industries that really has thrived in this, and so aspects of the computer games industry, and of course television really embraced, like you're saying about news and other aspects, live television with the video links, just like we're doing now. I think that's here to stay. I think it works. People really like it. And I think it adds a new level of kind of personability to people. Like you're seeing people in homes and stuff. I think that's working really well. The film industry, I think, is getting a catalyst that I think it's needed for quite a while for have some change. The film industry has a way of working that it's been doing for many, 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 many years. And I think new technologies like virtual production and what we're seeing even down into things like soaps, like EastEnders, of embracing using CGI in the way they shoot and smart ways of framing, I think it's a really exciting time for creativity, because I think the creative arts has always been an area that embraces change, embraces a catalyst, embraces that crazy disruption to come up with something new. And I hope that then filters in kind of a symbiotic relationship with science, engineering, and other aspects of kind of civilization and our society to help progress ourselves forward. So I think creative industry is really important in that way, and it's got a bright future, in my opinion.
It's very interesting that as somebody who's been teaching science fiction for a few years as well, we're now living in a science fiction age of video scenarios, etc. The great thing, of course, is that technology is gradually beginning to catch up with the kind of ideas that we've had for years in the industry about ways forward. I was very skeptical about the Skype system because it was very patchy. It dropped in and dropped out. Zoom we embraced because of the way it was really useful for not only radio stations to actually continue with their work with reporters distanced around the country and around the globe, but it also enabled us to enhance the connections with the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra at the same time as we could do Melbourne, Australia with some of our postgraduate students. We can also connect that kind of sharing of experience, which really works well. I mean, the notion of actually even putting a radio program together where you can mix those timelines without something like Zoom was not quite the stuff of dreams, but it was more the stuff of, well, it's not necessarily available. So it is there. Clearly, as Jack said, you've also got the advent of CGI, the creativity. Speaking to Louis Savvy, who's the coordinator of the Sci-Fi London Film Festival, although he still wants to get back to a certain form of physicality, using the kind of backdrops that you can create and actually sort of place yourself in certain locations is another way of enhancing the way in which things operate and so on.
So in design, as a discipline, is interconnected with the domain of creative industries, being a discipline that is projected to create something of new in a creative way. And in my point of view, the crisis has underlined the new role of the discipline in changing the present factors in order to face the future and also the present health-related condition. I would like also to start with what mentioned by Rachel about the crisis. If we turn back to the ancient Greek meaning of the term crisis, crisis is not something that is bad. It's something that is seen as an opportunity, literally something that can be considered in order to foresee and explore, probably not tomorrow morning, not in 1 month, but in a likely future. And so, in my point of view, the design discipline, and in generally speaking, any design activity in terms of service design, product design, strategic design, even engineering design, is playing a crucial role in order to face and deal the issues that the COVID-19 has raised. I could mention, for example, how many companies, especially in Italy, have changed and also readapt their production line in order to face and mitigate the pressure on the medical domain. For example, Armani, Yamamai, the Prada Luna Rossa Challenge sailboat team, Ferrari as well, in order to produce ventilators, in order to bring a positive contribution in order to adapt themselves and, be part of the change. Returning back to the question, design obviously can play a crucial role. What is important is to, in my point of view, see the crisis that in the present times we are living, and also considering also the effects that we are experiencing every day, in order to generate a positive change by connecting people, resources, technology capability, and also future likely living conditions.
So all of you have talked about how the overall direction of each of your respective creative industries has been affected and has been changed by COVID-19, as it probably would have been. How then has the programs that each of you are in charge of or involved with, how have they changed to reflect this, or to, to help your students with this change, this massive change?
Shall I jump in to start that one off? Because clearly, with respect to one of the most important parts of the public relations and communications program, a lot of our work is outward facing. It's involving with the community. It's connecting with projects like Signet PR, which again you're part of, Becky, in terms of where that actually operates and works through. Now, clearly, face-to-face meetings cannot take place in our current environment. So all of the work in terms of student-client relationships has had to shift online, in the same way as I say, our lectures will also be online, and a blended version of face-to-face and online learning. And that, again, is proving to be quite innovative, because a lot of our prospective projects outside are also entering this brave new world. So they're finding out the kind of netiquette, if you like, about the best way to coordinate meetings, the best way to ensure their message gets across. And that's fairly critical in terms of how the thing is developing and evolving.
I'll jump in there if no one minds. Well, for what we do in the School of Film and Media, it's a constantly evolving process of how you create the content, how audiences review and digest content. So in many ways, the challenges kind of all remain the same, but just the methods of doing things are slightly different. So we're always looking at our curriculum and developing things. So in the television studio, we're always adapting, changing new technologies, new ways of doing things. So now we're embracing what's happening, what the industry is doing. In our school, a lot of the people you meet are practitioners. And so we are people doing these things anyway. And so in film, we're fully embracing the way films are being made, and also we're embracing interesting creative restraints. So how can what's happening right now create something more interesting? Like, how do you tell a story that you would have told with 10 people, just with 2 people outside, and they can't go within 2 meters of each other? That's kind of, embrace that. And if you can take on any of these changes and react, which is really important in the film and media industry, any part of it, you're going to have a successful career. So we're embedding that in what we teach and what we're asking of the students. And we're looking at things like we're now looking at virtual production and media production as well, which was kind of really brought to the mainstream on The Mandalorian, which was launched as a big part of Disney Plus, which was launched, it was going to launch anyway, but was a big part of early lockdown, in the way that was kind of embraced and used as a method for people to kind of switch off and travel. It was strange for me. I found it strange at the beginning of lockdown to watch films and TV with lots of people mingling. But I was like, hey, The Mandalorian, because it's in space and on different planets. So it's weird how psychology works that way. And I was speaking to a lot of people who felt the same way. But the way they shot that, the virtual production, we're now going to be teaching that and looking at in the course. And so that's what we've done. But it's what we do anyway, is what I'm kind of really trying to say. So as much as we have changed things, these kind of challenges and that kind of embracing a crisis is kind of commonplace, because there's always some new technology, there's always some new way of doing things. So that's something we're quite proud of in the school, and we've certainly embraced, and we're really looking forward to kind of working with the students in that way.
And if I could follow on then as well, so those kind of practical adaptations that have to come in place. Now, this applies in a university such as Lincoln to all our teaching. I'll concentrate just one or two examples. With regard to those courses which require very practical hands-on skill, I'll mention one specific thing, which is interviewing. We've already said a couple of times that, you know, people are getting used to the Zoom split screen, etc., as part of live television events. A primary concern for us when our students are going out to interview people for news stories for packages that they're producing is obviously their safety. So actually, it is possible to do some face-to-face interview, but obviously using microphone booms and all the stuff you tend not to see behind the scenes to actually get two people in the same room, just a bit further apart than they were before. But actually an awful lot now is taking place through virtual connections such as this. The concern that students have, very interestingly, is kind of what will this say to people in the industry when I'm going forward if I've had to complete my degree using these kind of techniques. And the simple points which we're dealing again and again with, you know, journalists, etc., people working in the creative industries that we get in, is we're having to do this as well. The fact that you're not having to unlearn 20 or 30 years of practice and experience will actually be an advantage to you over the next couple of years. And the other element I'd say that's really, really important and starts to be brought in much more into our courses is straightforward resilience. We are living in much less certain times in terms of those typical career structures, the paths that students go into once they graduate. And what we're actually, what increasingly employers tell us when they're looking for graduates to go into those industries is that ability to hold up under pressure and to think on your feet, to be able to respond to those changes that may come in rapidly and are unplanned.
I'd like to respond to actually what both Jason and Jack are saying there, because we've just talked about how digital might be the future and how we're in a time of great innovation and change. But in the School of Fine and Performing Arts, our work is about audiences. Our work is about live audiences. I make touring theatre. I know the power of being in a room with a group of people as an audience, and right now that's missing. It's almost impossible. Same for dance, same for music, same for musical theatre. We are missing that face-to-face contact, that being in a room with people. But that is also what the sector is facing. And yes, I agree. I think students, there might be a concern that I'm going to have an experience at university right now that's different to everyone else's, and what use will that be in the future? But actually that is the professional current experience right now. And a lot of our staff in the School of Fine and Performing Arts are practicing artists, are professional dancers, professional musicians, professional theatre makers. And we're out there, we're living that, and we're bringing that into our teaching. We're going to be doing a mixture of online stuff like this, and actually arguably, some of the sessions have worked slightly better online, and I'm looking forward to teaching them in that way. But the practical stuff, the face-to-face studio work, the dance we're doing, that's a challenge, but we're finding ways to make it work, and we're finding ways to have fewer people in studios over longer periods of time to make sure we've got the right PPE. And we're also absolutely following national professional sector trends, and we're seeing lots of great innovation right now. Whereas perhaps you might have seen a theatre performance or a concert that was pre-recorded and was just sort of restreamed again. Now you're starting to see work that's being performed live, but it's being created specifically for digital platforms, or for a sort of hybrid audience where you've got a digital audience at home and perhaps a small socially distanced audience in the venue or even outside. So we're seeing all sorts of innovation, and that's being replicated through in all of our teaching plans for the coming semester. So we're kind of excited to be like learning along with everybody too, and thinking about how we can be innovative in that way. It's kind of a chance for us to really lead by example and show what we've got. So I'm kind of excited.
Thanks, Jason, for underlining an idea that I really care about, which is the resilience. And yeah, in my point of view, and also according to what we experience in the program in designs, we collaborate a lot with students in order to make them part of the learning program or the learning process, instead to be just passive and getting knowledge. No, and also recalling the idea of the University of Lincoln students as a producers, they have also to be part in the learning process in order to give and instill in future generations of students a seed idea that they can also retake, reinterpret, and explore again. In terms of adaptation, in the Lincoln School of Design, we obviously have adapted our teaching programs to the distance learning, but also to the distance teaching. And I have to confess that even for me, this was a learning process because I adapted my way to teach and explain concepts to new manner, to new modalities that are also mediated by the new technologies. One of the probably the most important thing that we have also to consider in design disciplines is the second language that we are used to speak. We are used to speak verbal language in terms of speech, words, but we are also used to speak using our pencils, sketching, which is another way, an alternative way to communicate immediately what you are thinking about. In my point of view, we are doing the good things at the moment in order to prepare the future generations of professionals, to make them confident, to be prepared to work in a globalized, interconnected, but at the same time delocalized condition. So I can train students to be prepared to work in a studio, in an architecture studio, industrial design studio, but at the same time, I feel myself obliged to teach them how to be confident and also how to get self-confidence in order to work remotely with clients in other parts of the world, working in a very strange times like 2 a.m. or under pressure, using visual and also graphical manner to communicate your idea. Again, for us, the COVID is a positive crisis in this way.
So each of you have, again, obviously spoken about how rapidly each of your sectors has changed in the last 6 months. With most courses of study here at the University of Lincoln, for your undergraduate degree at least, being 3 years, and many of the people who are watching now at this open day will be new students who do not graduate until 3 years' time. Where do you see your industries then? How do you see them changing then, especially in the wake of this crisis of COVID-19?
Looking to the future is always a challenging time, even more so at present. But if we're looking at 3 years, which is actually a relatively short period of time in the great scheme of things, I think a lot of the fundamental processes that we go through will remain constant. Good communication skills are good communication skills, full stop. Again, analyzing the kind of text that you're looking at, whether it be filmic, whether it be audio, whether it be written, again, those things are going to be part and parcel of our experience. The tools and the technology that we actually are using have improved exponentially because they've had to. Because even trying to do this a year ago, we would have had a whole range of glitches. And the fact that we've actually held this program together and it's streamed from that perspective is just tantamount to how the technology has actually improved. So what we're doing is that very crucial interface of ensuring that in terms of collaboration across courses, because again, there is a synthesis that's coming together here, whether it's dance, whether it's film, whether it's English, whether it's the written language, whether it's the technology, those things work together. And we are seeing, to paraphrase the wonderful movie Metropolis, which is celebrating 100 years in about 5 years' time from now, that connection between the heart and the head, and you're seeing it put into action.
I think there's a lot of stuff up for grabs. I mean, as Alex is saying, there's techniques, there's skills, there's the history of our subjects. We can absolutely ground ourselves in understanding where we've come from and where we find ourselves now. And then there's a real opportunity because so many doors are open, as Jason was saying, that you can have a meeting with someone on the other side of the world much more quickly, and people have got more time, and people are open to new suggestions, new thinking, new ideas. So in fiercely competitive industries, which the creative industries often are, it's quite an exciting time to think that in the 3 years of your degree, you could be truly innovative. You could be creating stuff and putting it out there and be on that kind of advance guard of new shifts, of seeing things happen. So over that 3-year span, you're really going to see a change in the sector over a 3-year span anyway. No matter what's going on in the world, there's always change. Nothing ever stays the same. But right now, there's an awful lot of opportunity. There's a lot of stuff up for grabs, and it's probably quite an exciting time. There's nervousness and uncertainty, but that's always there too. So perhaps right now, it's as good a time as any to be bold and brave, because people are looking for the new.
And I'd also come in and really emphasize something positive about the arts, which we began with, the impact of the lockdown, why the arts matter. I mean, obviously, science, medicine, finding a vaccine for coronavirus is incredibly important. It's not to diminish that in any way whatsoever. But what people were doing was they were reading, they were watching movies, they were finding ways to gain that fulfillment that helps with your mental health when you can't see loved ones, when you can't see families. I mean, at the end of last year, the creative industries in the UK were generating 8.8 million per hour in the UK. One area that we haven't spoken about much today, because I think we're talking about the industry side, working with other people, but for creative writing, for novelists, in March when lockdown was put in place, book sales in the UK increased by 35% in March. People need the arts. we need the arts to live. And actually, I think that's one of the really important things for anybody joining a course in the creative industries, is to start to think about the ways going forward to bring those arts to people who need them as much, if not more, than ever.
I think one of the most interesting elements to underline in this moment, connecting art and creative industries, is to rediscuss the role of redundancy and bringing the attention to the meaning, especially for what concerns design. Art could be obviously a powerful element to avoid any redundancy in designing object and moving the attention from the object of the stuff itself toward the attention on the solution and the capability of an object, of any artifact, can have in order to solve and even increasing the quality of life of people. In my point of view, we should consider and also pay more attention on the value and the time that we spend in order in the design of any solution, instead of iterate again and continuing in a sort of flow with the present time.
With film and media, before this happened, we were already seeing plans in place for new studios outside of London, and they're still going ahead. They're still getting funding. Channel 4 had already made the move, started to Leeds. And so in 3 years' time, firstly, the film and TV and media industry is still going to be continuing in that direction of moving out of London for similar reasons as we've already discussed. And I think that's going to speed up because of what's happened because of COVID and people working remotely, and also not a need to be in certain cities to thrive. And so that was already happening. And what also is going to kind of happen in the film television industry, because of what's happening now, is there'll be a lot of technological development to allow what has happened, such as the live kind of bringing guests in via Zoom or Skype. There'll be a lot of technological developments to allow that to happen easier. And therefore, it's going to create new roles. Already, we've seen on film sets there's an entire new department, which is the COVID department on film set shooting right now. 3-4 people. It's a whole new role, whole new jobs created because of this. And they're new ones. They're not replacing other roles because all the other roles are still needed. I think we're going to see new roles as well, and change and development. Animation and audio will just keep growing as they do. And also for those who are coming to study with us and get in this industry, because one of the things we've not really spoken about, we've been kind of industry focused. There's going to be a heck of a lot of new things that need questions asked about them. The studies element, the critical studies, there's loads more things to look at, ask questions about, research into. That's going to have a whole new area. Just as I think you'd be a fool to think this, but just if you started to think that all the questions about film had been asked, all of a sudden there's a whole new section. The way people have responded, right now we're seeing a lot of film and television created now, but it's the way it's being created is reacting to COVID. But will we start to see storylines that are actually reacting to COVID? How's that going to change things? How's it going to develop? And there's all sorts of things going on there. But I definitely think for those who want to go into further study, into masters, PhD, there's whole new areas that need to be examined as well, which is going to really open up things for all of our students.
I'd like to ask one final question then before we wrap up. And I think it would be important for prospective students to know, do you get to collaborate with other courses within the College of the Arts to gain that experience, to gain that interdisciplinary experience of working with, me working with film, or me working with journalism or fine and performing arts? Do you get that within the courses that you guys offer?
I mean, we do it within our school already, and a really prime example of that is I'm fortunate enough to be the producer for the Lincoln Company, which is our sort of semi-professional, student-facing performance arts and dance company. And every year we collaborate with students across all of our different programs to create new performance work, new artwork, and we take it to places such as Edinburgh Festival Fringe, which is hugely exciting. I get to spend all of August in Edinburgh seeing great work with loads of great students. We take our work up there and we professionally show what we're doing. And the key to the success we have up there is absolutely that collaboration, that interdisciplinarity. We're working between our art forms. We've got fine art students working with dance students, working with theatre students, working with our technical theatre courses, and they all work together and cross-pollinate. And I mean, it improves the diversity, the inclusivity of what we're doing. We can make richer work for a whole variety of audiences because of all of the people, everything that's been in that melting pot. We're also often looking to work slightly further outside our school. So in the past, we've worked with fashion, we've worked with photography, we've worked with film, and it's just massively important to making great art, to making art that is for everyone, that includes everyone, that we're as collaborative as possible. So the courses are full of it because it's so vitally important.
I'll jump in there if people don't mind. And it's same with it, it's vital. You can't make a motion picture without having audio involved. If you want to hit the current audiences that want both, and often you can tell what film you're watching before you've even seen an image because of the sound coming in. So within the school, the collaboration is embedded and has always been there. There's lots of opportunities to meet. We actually embed that from the beginning. In Welcome Week, we have events that actually get our students mixing between courses within the school. So those foundations are laid before you've even had a single session lecture. Collaborations within the college, has just been highlighted, happen often due to kind of more fluid kind of need and what's out there. And I imagine now more than ever, that's going to grow and grow and grow. And I'm looking forward to seeing how our students all collaborate. And I think that's going to be a big part of the next few years, if not going on forever.
I'd also like to draw attention to a lot of the extracurricular activities that students can engage with. So within the school and then across between schools, we have things such as The Link, which is a student newspaper, which is not just for journalism students. We have a lot of students' interest from other courses writing for that. There's also, and I'll invite Alex to say a bit more about this in a moment. He's already mentioned Siren, which is a community radio, which draws in a huge number of students from a diverse range of disciplines. And we've also recently in the school launched the Lincoln Review, which is a creative writing publication. Again, the focus is on those who want to engage in creative writing, but also build their editing skills. And it's not just simply for students on those courses.
It was in the 1930s that R. Buckminster Fuller, actually known for Buckminster Fullerene in terms of a geometrical structure, came up with the whole notion of actually putting two disparate subjects together and actually getting a third and unexpected outcome as a result of that. And that's really what, again, Scholars in Radio Entertainment, which is Siren's original acronym, was established for. Within that, we've also seen within the school producing podcasts and product for geography students, for science-based students. That's in addition to obviously working with journalists, with writers, with creative aspects as well. And I'm also in the fortunate position that I also teach some science fiction material with the Lincoln School of Film and Media as well. So I think, on that basis alone, I've had a lot of students there who've crossed over and worked within the radio production and developing things on that side of things as well. If it's said that radio is like television without the pictures, or some variation on that, I think we're in that notion that even the environment of what we've been teaching today and what we're working through today is an example of, if you're used to actually dealing with microphones, etc., that's a skill set that you can take with you. It's an old cliche, but transferable skills are such a hugely important aspect of the whole undergraduate experience, and that obviously builds in terms of your experience post-graduation as well.
In the School of Design, we are always eager to invite our students to generate connection, an interdisciplinary connection with other schools of the University of Lincoln, because a design is not just an object that has a function, but is part of something that over the time it will be part of our life. It will be a brand of ourselves. So generally speaking, an artifact that can be designed is intrinsically interconnected with psychological elements, economic elements, manufacturing elements, and so on. In my point of view, giving students the completely freedom to self-generate connection with schools within the University of Lincoln can reinforce an holistic approach to teaching, giving students even the chance to self-personalize their path and their learning process, and in the university, as a form of recognizing the specificity of any student and supporting them to choose the best path for them.
I think that is a perfect place to wrap up our panel session for today. I'd like to say thank you to all of the panel guests for joining us and for discussing your views and the future of the creative industries. I'd also like to remind any students watching that they can head over to UniBuddy to talk to staff about your specific program and get answers about any questions that you might have. We also have another panel at 1 p.m. where we will be discussing how arts can save the world. But until then, thank you for joining us.